Hi everyone, Ashley Brown here, Samvia Ambassador, Mazzani Artist and Techspert, and your resident curl specialist. You can follow me on Instagram at ash_hairbarbie. I'm super excited to get into all things curls, coils, and waves with you all today. We are going to focus on tips, tricks, techniques, and tools for cutting curls, coils, and waves. I'm excited to talk to you today about how we got this beautiful shape on our pivot point mannequin, Janet. As you can see, she is rocking very cool color with this amazing mullety shag curly look. So we literally took her from, let me grab my original, from this to this. So you can see the big difference. So let's talk about the science of textured hair. When we speak to texture types, we're talking about curls, coils, and waves. So those are texture types 3 all the way up to 8. So as you can see on the screen, our Mazzani texture key is going to show us that our Janet mannequin, she is a texture type 5 with a little bit of 6. So that's gonna be curly, getting into the coily hair. Now this hair naturally grows into what we call an earmuff type of shape. So when we thought about what haircut to give Janet, we definitely want it to give her something that reduces those earmuffs and just gives her some beautiful volume on the top, because this texture type also has a tendency to be flat at the crown. So real quick, want to get into the different characteristics of texture types. This is important when you're trying to decide what haircut to give your guest. So texture types 3 and 4, as you can see on the screen, this texture type is going to be more so wavy, starting to get a little bit into curly. So this guest is going to be flat at the crown and their hair will grow triangular. Okay, so that when you think about what haircut might this client want, when your hair is growing triangular, you might want to reduce the triangle, right? We also like to think about shrinkage. So texture type 3 and 4 is also going to have 1 to 20% shrinkage. Shrinkage is important because this is going to help us determine how we want to prep the hair before we even do a haircut. So for curls, coils, and waves, we're going to be cutting dry, and I'll get into exactly how we prepped it in just a moment. So back to the science. So we have next up, we talked about our 3, 4. Now we have our texture type 5 and 6. We mentioned Janet here is about a 5 and 6. This is where the hair is going to be growing out horizontally from the scalp. So it's going to fall forward, creating those earmuffs. As the hair grows out horizontally, it can be flat at the crown, but it's going to start to get curly and coily as you go down the hair shaft. This can sometimes cause that guest to have a little bit of a drier texture because that natural oil from the scalp has trouble moving from the scalp all the way down and through those curls, coils, and even sometimes waves, right? Because each texture type, even though we're specifically speaking to 5 and 6, all the texture types, a guest can come in with multiple texture types on one head of hair. So specifically with our 5s and 6s, they're gonna grow out horizontally, creating the earmuff shape that we saw our beautiful Janet here came in with. She's got these earmuffs by her ears. It's really hard to see her face, so we wanna open things up for her. Going on to shrinkage, texture type 5 and 6 is gonna have 20 to 50% shrinkage. That shrinkage is major. So that's why it's important that we start with our haircut dry so that we can see where she is experiencing the most shrinkage or where our guest is experiencing the most shrinkage. All right, so as I continue to section off, we'll keep going through those texture types. Now, texture type 7 and 8 are next. Now, this texture type grows out vertically from the scalp. Okay, so not only does it grow out vertically, so straight up and out, but it also has 50 to 90% shrinkage. So this is when our shrinkage gets real, which is another reason why it's so important to properly prep your guest for their haircut so that you know exactly where you have 50% shrinkage versus 90% shrinkage or even 20% shrinkage. Because as we mentioned, one guest can have multiple different texture types on one head of hair. All right, so we went through our science of our texture types. Just want to reference back those shapes we were talking about. So our 3s and 4s, that's our triangle. Typically this guest will want to reduce the triangle, all right? Our 5s and 6s, like Janet here, this is gonna create that crescent. We also can refer to it as earmuffs because the hair literally starts to create this crescent shape around the face, which can emulate an earmuff. So oftentimes this guest wants to open things up, get a little volume at the root because their volume could be flat here so that they get a nice fuller shape. okay? And then last but not least, our texture type 7 and 8s, because they grow out vertically from the scalp, this will emulate an afro. So it's gonna give you a really full round shape. Now the hair isn't actually cut into an afro, it just emulates one because of the shrinkage, okay? Because we know an afro is a uniform haircut. So a guest could come in with hair as long as mine, but in its natural state, it might look very full and round like an afro, but then when you press it out and flat iron it, you'll see that it's actually just very long and possibly a long layered cut. So that's our texture types. And again, different texture types are going to help to determine what shapes are possible for your guest with curls, coils, and waves. Now, we mentioned a little bit ago, or I mentioned prep. So we made sure that Janet came in prep for her haircut today. And the way that she did that was shampooing her hair first. We used the Mizani Press Agent shampoo and conditioner for her service. So the Mizani Press Agent, it is actually for if you're silk pressing or blowing hair out, but it's also very great for clients who are wearing their hair natural who experience dryness. So we shampooed her twice with the Press Agent. Then we went through with our conditioner, evenly distributed. We actually used our Sanvia 9-row brush to evenly distribute the conditioner once it was applied. We apply the conditioner mid-shaft to ends because that's where we want to focus on giving the most hydration. Those ends have been around the longest, so they have a tendency to be the driest area. Once we shampooed and conditioned, then we went through and applied our Mizani 25 Miracle Milk and detangled the hair, all right? This is very, very important for prepping our mannequin. Now, it's important because when we're doing a dry cut, when we're doing dry curly cutting, we want to make sure that we can easily get through the hair without disrupting it too much. We want to really see where that hair lives. So we sprayed our 25 Miracle Milk, applied this to the hair, detangled, went through it with our 9-row Sanvia brush, and we let the hair air dry. Now, in some instances, you might say, okay, my guest is in my chair, I'm cutting the hair now, I can't let it air dry, so then what? I have the perfect tool for you. Now, our Sanvia Pro Ionic Dryer has this handy dandy deep bowl diffuser that literally attaches right to it. So in the instance where a client comes in, you have to prep their hair, you have to emulate a natural air dry, you're gonna use your deep bowl diffuser and you're literally just going to oscillate, okay? So you're gonna oscillate, you might gently lift and kind of oscillate underneath, but what you're not gonna do is go in and scrunch with the diffuser. This is because with the air cut, with any curly cut, you want to be able to identify where is the shrinkage. Where do I need to accommodate for the shrinkage? And so if I go in with my deep bowl diffuser and I'm scrunching, then I'm actually styling the hair. I'm actually creating some shrinkage. So the reason why we take this into account and why we look at shrinkage, because for example, our Janet right here, she might have 50% shrinkage here, but then only 20% shrinkage here. So this is gonna shrink up and look shorter, and this is gonna look longer. The goal with our curly cut is to balance those things out. So we need to see where is the shrinkage to make sure we can balance it, okay? All right, so we talked about her prep. We shampooed, conditioned with Mizani Press Agent, used our 25 Miracle Milk to detangle, that's our leave-in conditioner, and let it air dry. We didn't put any products in Janet's hair because products also can create shrinkage, create elongation. We want to see truly how does her hair naturally live? Where is that shrinkage naturally occurring on different parts of her head? So now that we have her ready to be cut, I'm going to bring out Zondinia so you can see exactly what we did here. Now, sectioning Janet's hair into zones is going to make it easier for us to control as we're cutting. Control is key when you're cutting curls, coils, and waves. You must have control of that texture. So we have our zone 1, which is the hairline, all the way around Janet's head. Then we have zones 2 and 3 in the back, zones 4 and 5 on the sides, zone 6 on the top, we call this the crown, and zone 7 on the top in the front. Okay, so these are our zones. So I'm making sure that as I'm zoning it off, I'm literally rolling, just like a cinnamon roll, rolling this hair up, and then I'm taking my dry sectioning clip and I'm literally just clipping that hair away. The 2 techniques we're going to use today are called linear and slide glide, okay? So these are 2 techniques we use when doing the Mizani air cut cutting method, and they can be done with our amazing Sanvia dry cutting shears. So these are the classic series shears. These are my favorite to use. I love it because even though they are shaped classically like our classic shears are, they have a little bit more room so that ergonomically it's more comfortable as you're cutting. So that is huge. All right, so we prep each section with our Mazzani 25 Miracle Milk. So I put a couple pumps in my hand. This is a leave-in conditioner. You can see it's very thin viscosity. Emulsify in my hand, and I'm applying mid-shaft to ends. The goal is not to saturate each section. The goal is just to control it, to reduce the frizz. Because we had Janet air dry with no product, you might find that she could get a little frizzy. So the Mazzani 25 Miracle Milk is going to help us control that. All right. So once I have my Miracle Milk applied, I'm just declumping the curls. I'll zoom in a little bit to show you exactly what that looks like. So for example, right here would be a clumped curl. I'm just gently separating it so that I have nice soft curls that I'm cutting. If we cut clumped curls, clumps are going to give us chunks, okay? So we don't want any chunks. The great thing about this cutting method is that your guests can wear their hair straight or curly. So I wanna make sure that even though her hair is curly today, we're cutting it curly, that when she goes home, if she wants to flat iron it, it's still gonna look great. So as we get into it, we are gonna start with our short cutting comb, and we're gonna be using the wide teeth. We're just using the wide teeth to stabilize the hair, not actually comb the hair. So it'll be a different way for you to use your comb. So grab my shears, and I'm literally just going to take the hair and tap it into the comb. All right, so I'll turn this towards you so you can see a little better here. So we're literally just lifting the hair and tapping it into the comb. Now I'm tapping it into the comb. My comb is the length that I'm going to take Janet's hair today. So literally the comb is just stabilizing the hair and acting as a guide. Now, if Janet had shoulders, what I could do is I could literally just put the comb on her shoulders to give me the line that I would like to cut. So keep that in mind for your guests. You would literally just put it on their shoulders so you know what line you're cutting. All right, so we'll lift this, tap that hair in, and we're going to go through and cut our straight line. Now I'm just gonna be cutting half of Janet's head today, just the front, so that again, I can really show you how we gave her those beautiful layers, but then also created air in the hair. As I remove my comb, I'm just gonna gently release it from the back. So same thing, if you're using your guest's shoulders to cut, you're literally putting that hair in, cutting, and then releasing from the way you inserted. Okay, you want to release the way you insert it. You don't want to go and comb the hair because we really want to make sure that we keep the texture and the shrinkage in its natural state, so we can make sure that we're accounting for both of those things. All right, so we have our straight line on the side here. Now we're gonna go through and we're gonna give her her shape for her layers. Now this is going to be our guide for the front of our haircut for Janet today. So same thing, I'm literally just coming in on an angle here, because we have that beautiful face frame layer that we're giving her. So I'm coming in on an angle, tapping that hair in, and that's the line I'm cutting. Now I make sure that her perimeter that I just cut is not in this. I'm using it as a guide so that I can connect this with what is going to be her fringe, but I'm not actually cutting into the perimeter that I just created, okay? So our zone 1 perimeter, the length that we are taking her hair at, that will stay intact, but now I'm gonna go through and cut these layers that I'm starting to create around her face, okay? So again, I'm releasing the comb the way in which I inserted, and now I can go through and continue on up with the layers, okay? So we're tapping that hair into the comb, not using the comb to actually comb, and I'm continuing my face frame layers into what will be Janet's fringe, okay? So once I get to the front here, I really want to see, this Janet came in with an existing fringe, okay? Her fringe is a little smaller than what we're looking for to create our mullety shag today. So we want to open the fringe up a little more. So the way that we're going to do that is still by using our comb as our guide, or as our tool to help us stay on track with our cut, but we're actually using the shortest piece in her fringe as our guide, and then these layers that we just put in, we're going to connect, okay? So I'm gonna stand behind so it's easier for you all to see. We have our short piece here that we just cut, and we have our fringe that is our guide. And again, we're just tapping that hair in, and we're coming around and we are connecting the two. okay? Releasing the way in which you got it. And now you can see here that we're starting to create these nice face frame layers, okay? All right, so cross-checking. Cross-checking is so important when you're cutting textured hair. So I'm gonna do 2 pumps of the 25 Miracle Milk again, emulsify, and I'm using prayer hands to cross-check this hair. So by using prayer hands and coming over it with the Miracle Milk, I'm gonna see if there are any little tiny frizzy pieces that I missed. You can see there's just a couple little frizzy guys there. And those frizzy pieces that I missed, I'm literally just gonna go in and do the same thing, put my comb in here and just cut those little frizzy pieces, okay? So my comb, again, is just going to be my kind of reference point to make sure that my line is nice and straight, okay? All right, so I got the little frizzy pieces off. You can see now it's nice and organized. And now we can move on to the side of Janet's head, which is our zone 5. All right, so moving on to the side, we are going to take vertical partings, so straight up and down. The first parting is going to be closest to Janet's face because this is going to be our guide for our layers, for our shaggy mullet. So we have our vertical parting. We are going to prep our vertical parting with 25 Miracle Milk and prayer hands. So emulsify, prayer hands. Now the reason we do prayer hands is, again, we don't want to disrupt the texture too much. If we go through and we start raking it, that could disrupt the texture, and we took so much time to prep her beautiful hair, we wanna make sure the texture stays intact. All right, so I have 2 subsections, 1 and 2, and this is where we're going to get into using our dry cutting shears to do what we call slide glide, okay? So the way that it works is I'm just going to organize this hair, lay it right on top of the hair I just cut. So my zone 1, the hair I just cut, this is my guide. I'm layering it right on top of there, okay? So I can see my guide underneath, my shears are right where my guide is, and this hair that I want to cut is right on top, all right? So this is my guide right here, laying it right on top. Now the way that slide glide works is that your palm that you use to grab the hair is always gonna be facing your guest. So in our case, our guest is Janet, so I wanna make sure that my palm is always facing her and it can always touch her head, okay? That's a good way to remember. So if I'm on the left side of Janet, my palm is facing her, I'm grabbing the hair like this. If I'm on the right side, I'm gonna rainbow around and I'm grabbing the hair like this, all right? So we'll tilt her to the side again. Now, as I mentioned, my shears are right where my guide is and I drop that hair over. I can use my finger to kind of lightly hold that hair in place, but I don't want any tension. This is a tension-free haircut. We know that with curls, coils, and waves, tension can cause shrinkage, can cause holes in your cut. We don't want that. All right, so we have our shears where they need to be, our hair is in place, and I'm going to rainbow around, and I'm gonna grab this hair right where my shears are. Once I have that guide locked in, I can then move wherever it's comfortable for me to cut. So wherever I need to be so that I'm ergonomically being responsible and I'm comfortable, I can do. If I need to be down here, I can be down here. If I need to be up here, I can be up here. The main thing to remember though is no tension. So I need to make sure there's slack in this hair and that I'm not pulling tension and changing my guide. So once I have it where it's comfortable to cut, this is when I come in with my shears. Now, the great thing about the Samvia Classic Series shear is that it has a convex blade. So this is gonna make it easy for me to curve as I close and cut without dragging on the hair, okay? When it comes to curls, coils, and waves, you never want to drag the hair or drag on the cuticle because this can cause frizz and breakage, all right? So what I'm doing is I'm keeping my shears perpendicular to my fingers as I'm cutting. And I literally come in and I am curving my wrist with the shears as I close, okay? So that's the motion. I have this hair I wanna cut, I'm curving as I close. Not at any point am I flicking my wrist and raking on that hair, all right? So essentially, slide glide is very similar to point cutting. The main difference is that by doing this technique where I'm curving as I close my shears, I'm creating little tiny air pockets on the ends of the hair to give it more air, all right? So once I finish, I'm not gonna release it. I'm gonna bring it back to where I got it from. I'm gonna do a gentle stretch, and right here is where I'm cross-checking. So when I do a gentle stretch, you see I have just a couple loose hairs, and that's what I'm cutting off to cross-check, okay? Cross-checking is imperative when you're cutting textured hair because you really wanna make sure that once all is said and done and the client has their hair in its natural state, that you don't have a bunch of frizzy pieces hanging around. All right, so next section, same thing. So this was the top subsection, this is our bottom subsection. So our bottom subsection is going to use the bottom part of our zone 1 around the face frame as our guide, because again, this is creating our layers, okay? So my shears are going right where my guide is, my hair is gonna fall right over that. We'll get a little closer. So that's my guide where my shears are, and that is the hair that I'm cutting. So again, I'm rainbowing around to grab that hair. Once I have it locked in place, I can stand where it's comfortable for me to cut, and I'm gonna be going in perpendicular with my shears, and I'm curving as I close. Curving as I close. I don't release that hair. I come back to where I got it from, stretch it out, and that is when I have these little loose hairs that we are going to snip off, okay? So this is going to start to create, again, air pockets as well as our layered cut. So next section, same thing, vertical partings. I'm gonna clip back the hair that I'm not cutting, my vertical parting, prepping with 25 Miracle Milk. Pulling it through to make sure that I am controlling the frizz and giving me more control with my cut. Now, same as the first section, I'm gonna take 2 subsections, 1, 2. Now, what I'm going to be using for my guide is the previously cut hair. So for this haircut, we have a traveling guide, okay? So the previously cut hair is now my new guide. When I turn Janet to the side here, you can see this is my new guide. So this is what I'm gonna be, the length I'm gonna be taking that hair to. I drop the hair that needs to be cut right over it. And remember, palm facing my guest, I'm going to rainbow around, grab that hair, bring it to where it's comfortable to cut, and that's what I'm gonna do my slide glide. I'm going to get a different angle on this so that you can get a different idea of what exactly I'm doing with my shears. Okay, so let's see if I can get in here real close. Okay, so I'm taking my shears and I'm literally snipping and curving them as I close them. All right, so let me get in this angle here. So we're literally coming through and I'm curving as I close, okay? So we'll bring that back. Got a cross check. You can see those loose hairs pretty easily right here, and we're cutting those loose hairs off, okay? Next subsection, same thing. And I'll do that same angle so it's a little easier for you to see exactly what I'm doing with my shears. So here is my guide. Here's the hair that I want to cut laid right over it. Rainbowing around to grab that hair that needs to be cut. We'll go back to this same angle. So I start, and as I open and close, that's when I'm curving my shears, okay? So open, close, open, close. Now, if you get some hair that's stuck around your finger, you can just use your shears to push that hair back up. And then I can, same thing, open, close, close. Now, one way that I make sure that I'm not gonna cut myself when I'm doing this is I start with my shears flat on my fingers and then I slightly tilt. So by slightly tilting, I can come in and open and close and make sure that I'm not grabbing my finger, right? So instead of being flat right here, I'm slightly tilting as I open and close the shears. All right, can't move on without cross-checking. So we'll bring this hair back to where we got it from, stretch it out. You can see those loose hairs hanging on, cut those off. All right, so we can start to see our shaggy layered shape is starting to come together. Last subsection, we are literally going to rinse and repeat. And it's a traveling guide, so my previously cut hair is my guide. So we'll get in here and I'll do this real quick so we can move on to the top. All right, so curving as I close, stretch it out. And one thing I should mention as well, when I find my guide, I want to make sure that wherever I get my guide from and I cut this hair, I want to make sure that I bring that hair right back to where I got it from when I cross-check. I don't want to bring it up here. I don't want to bring it up here. It has to be right where I got it from as I'm cross-checking. All right. All right, so we're starting to get her shape together. The great thing about the Mizani ear cut as well, your guest is facing the mirror for the majority of the cut. This is huge for building trust, okay? So we're moving on to our zone 7, which is at the top of her head, and I'm going to take a horizontal parting across the top. All right. So horizontal parting across the top, you can see it here, and we're gonna prep. So 25 Miracle Milk. Cut that hair, perfect. All right, so we are going to be using our fringe for our guide. All right, so we have our 2 subsections, 1, 2. So you can see those easily. So this one falls right over the fringe. Our fringe is going to be our guide. This one falls a little bit more so on kind of the layer that connects to her fringe. So that will be our guide for our second subsection. So for slide glide, when we're doing it on the front, I'm going to be standing behind my guest, and I still hold my shears right where my guide is, and I'm still palm facing my guest, right? So before I was rainbowing this way, now I'm rainbowing this way, okay? So I have my shears here, palm facing guest, and I'm going to easily grab that hair, bring it to where it's comfortable to cut, and slide glide. And you can see I'm just using like the first maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch of my shears. I don't want to be using this part of my blade because it's going to be too hard for me to do the technique, okay? So by using just the first inch of the shears, I can come in and curve as I close. Curve as I close. And again, if some curls get stuck, you can just use the blade to push them against your finger, and then you're going to bring it back to where you got it from, gentle stretch, and I can see these loose hairs, we're taking those off, okay? So this is going to start build that fringe and build that weight around Janet's face. Same thing like we did on the side. This is a traveling guide. So my first guide was my zone 1 underneath. As I move higher up, it's just going to be the previously cut hair. And actually, I'm going to take 2 subsections in her fringe because as we move up the round of the head, it gets wider. And I want to make sure that if I don't have full control, that I'm not forcing this hair together. I want to make sure that I subsection for control if need be. So I'm going to subsection this. So these are the 2 pieces laying over the fringe. So we have our first subsection in the fringe. I'll move the other one out of the way so we can see. This is our guide right here, previously cut hair. So my shears go where my guide is, that hair hangs over, and then I palm facing my guest, rainbow on over to grab that hair, lock it in, bring it to where it's comfortable to cut, and I'm opening and closing with my shears, curving as I close, carving that hair out. Remember, I'm not going like this. I'm not flicking or raking on the hair. I'm just carving it out. Once it's carved out, bring it back to where I got it from. Gentle stretch. I can see these loose hairs. That's what I'm cutting off. Here we are with all of her zones on the right side of her head completed, so you can start to see what the shape is giving. I'm actually going to take out some of these dry sectioning clips so that you can see even on this particular Janet, her before and after, and the amount of air and volume we have created in her hair just from doing the slide glide technique and the linear technique to create that mullety shag, right? So you can see how much lift and volume she's getting versus how flat she is on this side that hasn't yet been air cut. All right, so we see we have this beautiful mullety shag on our Janet. So this is her after. The other thing I wanted to point out again with the Mizani air cut, with these 2 techniques that I showed you today, is that your guest can easily transition into different styles. So here is another example of finished style for Janet. So on this side, she has her hair finger coiled. So it's gonna give you a little bit more definition, a little bit more of a defined coil than what she naturally has. And on this side, she just has it blown out, flat ironed, and lightly curled. So you can see with our beautiful mullety shag or mag haircut that she has style options. And when Janet came in and she sat in my chair, she's like, girl, I want some options today. So we gave her just that. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Remember, you can follow me on Instagram at @ash_hairbarbie. And I'm happy to send you all the tips and tricks I have in my tool belt as your resident curl specialist.